Hey there. Good morning from me, and good evening to you. How are you this Friday?
Hi, Reed. I'm fine. How are you?
Doing pretty well. I'm glad to finally get you on. I know we've interacted in the community a bit, and I've been very appreciative of some of the unique designs and other visualizations that you've showcased and managed to make over the years. So, very impressive collection of some really cool designs, especially with Deneb and some of the other stuff. So, glad to get you on and also have a chance to chat a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, I'm usually more in data visualization, but today I decided to talk about something different, which is a trend nowadays.
Exactly. Yeah, and
AI.
it's nice to change it up and keep yourself engaged, right?
Yeah.
Now, I usually like to start with a chance to get a little background on yourself and have you introduce yourself to the channel. I'm also curious with the fish tank that's in the corner next to you. Who lives in there?
For now, nobody lives there because it's new. It's just 2 weeks old.
Okay.
So there is no one there. Just plants. A lot of plants.
Fish, turtles?
Not yet.
No, I just what is planned for it?
Some shrimp, snails, and maybe a few small fishes.
Nice. Okay, adds a little bit of actual life to the room for sure. But if you want to start from the perspective of giving a little background on who you are, kind of what you like to do within the BI space, we can start from there.
Okay. Well, it was a long road before I started working with Power BI and data visualization. I used to live in another country, working as IT project manager, CIO in small companies, non-IT companies. And then I decided that I want to work from home. And I worked as Excel VBA developer, as freelancer for about 8 years, and I moved to Poland. And then it was 2020 and the pandemic. And before this, I worked mostly in Excel. And in January 2020, I started making some coronavirus dashboards. And that's when I fully switched into Power BI, because I spent like a few months doing only coronavirus-related dashboards, learning Power BI more deeply, because I used it earlier, but just for some really small projects. And because of the coronavirus, I just fully switched from Excel to Power BI. I got interested in data visualization. I started reading a lot of books about data visualization. So yeah, this was a big change for me, caused by coronavirus.
Well, and I mean, a lot of people generally just who get into visualizations will spend a lot of time just with data visualizations. What got you interested in going so heavily into like custom visuals and some of those unique designs with like Deneb and everything else?
That's because of the data visualization books that I read these books, and I started realizing that to make better visualization, I need some features. It's not necessary to make more complex data visualization. I need additional features, but Power BI is some features are missing in Power BI that allows to make simpler data visualization. Like you need to change a color of a line in a line chart with a legend, and it's not easy. You need some workaround to do that. And that's when I started understanding that I need to try something that allows me to customize my visualization. And I think it was some tweets probably of, I can't even recall who was that. Maybe I think it was Kerry Kolosko messages when I found that there is a Deneb and I started trying something in the app, and that's when I realized that, yep, this is what I need.
It's very versatile in that sense, and I would agree on the fact that there's only so much, at least the term in the U.S. MacGyvering, or like smashing together a visual natively before you realize like the effort would be easier going to the custom visual route. But just as a quick shout out, Daniel Marsh-Patrick's done an amazing job building a really useful and free custom visual builder. But aside from visualizations, which I can spend hours talking about, and especially all the cool stuff nowadays coming out for with the Power BI Core Visuals team, the topic today is adjacent to, but not necessarily directly related to visualization. So what's the topic of the day and the stuff that we're going to be digging into?
Well, we all nowadays use AI to help us to write some code or to add some comments into the code and to write some documentation. And it's all started from me writing some VBA code for Microsoft Work to make some custom buttons so I can use OpenAI API to translate my text in one click, to summarize it or to proofread it. And then I realized that I can use the same in Power BI using Tabular Editor and C# scripts. And I asked ChatGPT to help me in rewriting VBA code into C#, and I created some scripts for Tabular Editor that can be used to help me to work with Power BI data models, adding some comments into the measures, and it's beta feature of OpenAI API, and my code is also rather beta version right now, but it works, and I wanted to show how it's possible to use Tabular Editor to bring ChatGPT into Power BI. So instead of using Copilot, which requires premium or fabric capacity, you can just use OpenAI directly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm very curious to know what specific features we'll be able to leverage with it. And to your point, knowing that we can also not require any kind of premium capacity, I think it's still an F64, which is an expensive capacity to need a lot of Copilot features. So wherever you'd like to start, and we can get going from there.
I probably will start from simple ChatGPT to explain what exactly I use, what ChatGPT feature I use in my script. So in ChatGPT, we can create custom GPTs. So we can click create and create some custom GPT. We can attach some files, documents, so it's aware of this document. For example, I have custom GPT for helping me with some DAX coding, and it has the definitive guide to DAX book in PDF attached. So these custom GPTs, they are basically based on OpenAI API assistant feature. Let me open the documentation. So if you will open API documentation for OpenAI, there is this assistant feature, which is beta version for now. So I used ChatGPT to help me to write the code. It was really great, but not perfect because, again, it's a new and beta feature. So ChatGPT model is not aware of some, is not fully aware about this assistant API requirements. So there were some missing parts of the code that I had to use Google to find what I need to modify to make it working. But finally, I was able to do that and write these C# scripts for Tabular Editor.
Okay.
So the idea is that when we work with Tabular Editor and have access to our data model, all our measures, the easiest thing we can do is just select some measure. Let me find something. Oops, something really simple. So you can select this measure. You can open ChatGPT. You can insert it, and you can say add comments to the measure. So it will do that for you, but it's a lot of manual work. You will need to copy it. You will need to go back and insert it into Tabular Editor or Power BI. And there is another problem. It references some other measures, and when you just copy in measure code, ChatGPT knows nothing about your data model. It knows nothing about these measures. It sees just names of the measures and can try to use the measure names to figure out what is it about. But that's all. It's not aware about your data model. And using C# script for Tabular Editor, we can create OpenAI assistant and attach the JSON file that describes the entire data model to this assistant. So I created this script, which creates OpenAI assistant and attaches some files to this assistant. So you can see I have the definitive guide to DAX PDF. I have Power Query M formula language specification PDF. So when I click create update assistant, I have a macros here, create an update assistant. I have a button here. It uses...
So you're essentially giving it the information it needs to make sure it writes the code correctly.
Yep, I just provide some additional files to the assistant. So later, when I'll be asking it to do something with my measures, it will be aware of my data model and will have some additional documentation available to do the job in the better way. So I can attach different PDF files to the assistant, but also I want to attach the description of the entire data model. It's possible to do in easier way when you have enterprise version or business version of Tabular Editor, but here I use just the desktop edition of Tabular Editor 3. So I can just in one click export my data model into a JSON document, but I used the same C# script to get all the details of my data model. Let me scroll down a bit. There are functions to get a list of all tables, description, is it a calculated table, DAX expressions for this table, all columns in the table, calculated columns from the table, different properties of these columns.
Okay. You're basically just giving it all the required information automatically.
Yep. All calculation groups, all calculation items inside of the calculation groups, all measures. So it just gets all this information about my data model and exports it into a JSON file. So here we have a list of tables for each table, column, some properties, format strings, and other properties of each column. We have all the measures with DAX expressions. So everything about my data model is in this JSON. Relationships between tables also described. So now my script can also, together with this PDF of some books and documentation, can attach a JSON that describes the data model I'm currently working with. So I click Create and Update Assistant. It exports the data model into JSON. And then it checks if already there is assistant created. If not, it will create a new one. If it's already created, it just updates existing one with attaching actual data model JSON. So now I can go to OpenAI Playground, and here in Playground we have assistants. So all existing assistants are visible here in this list. So what was created using API call is also accessible here, and in the Playground it's also possible to use this simple user interface to create your own assistants. But again, I automated this, so C# script create assistant for Tabular Editor here. It has some instructions. UI and assistant, specialized in DAX, an M language for Tabular Editor, and so on. Also here in the script, I can change the data model. Currently it's GTP4o. You can just edit it and change it to different data model. It's possible to use Mini if you need to make it less expensive and faster. And we can see that file search is enabled, and we have it open it on another screen. 1 second. Okay, I can't find it.
Yeah, I've not used the Playground as much with some of these assistants and stuff, so like it's good to know that the amount of like additional data you can provide into this and kind of create these saved items to come back into this. Now, so curiously, I mean, you obviously get a bit more of the threads and other stuff into here. Could you with ChatGPT Pro, you do have the menu option where you have dedicated chat threads and channels. Could you do something similar to this, where you start a new chat there, give it a friendly name, and then just give it the files and ask it, like, please remember this information. This thread is meant to be for tabular assistance editing or anything, or do you need to use the Playground?
Okay, let me just create some assistant here in user interface. So again, whatever I can do in Playground, it's possible to do using API. What was created using API will be accessible using Playground, and what was created using Playground is visible for API. So we can create a new assistant here, give it some name, AI assistant or something. You can provide some system instructions like you are helpful assistant, but more detailed. You can select a data model. You can attach some files, whatever you want. I won't be doing this right now. And then there is a thread which will be permanently stored. I don't know for sure. I think maybe they are removed at some point, but it is persistent, so you can use this thread next time and it will be aware of all your previous messages and files uploaded. So basically, you can attach files to the assistant and then you can attach additional files in the thread. And let me just copy some measure. I will open my assistant for Tabular Editor, which already has some system instruction, and it has the definitive guide for tags attached. And I can insert my simple measure and ask it to add some comments. It added some comments to the measure code and provided some additional information about divide functions that was used. And we can see here that there is a reference to file.
I do feel like with 4.0, the new summaries that it's been providing and the additional like UI on like breaking down stuff has been really enhanced. Like just as I mentioned on ChatGPT, like I recently asked it for a list of recommendations in an area. It rendered a mini map like that I could actually move around and zoom in on. I could click the data points of where it was, and then I could get a list from it. Like they've added a lot of UI to really help automatically give information for you on what was done and why with links. So you're not just like needing to keep asking it, can you explain to me why you just did this? It tries to give that to you ahead of a question.
Yeah. But what was really important for creating an assistant for some tool like Tabular Editor, it's once we get a response, we need to parse it somehow back into our measure. And if it will be just text, we will have a problem parsing it. Is it a valid measure, or do we have these key points added after the measure? So if I will just copy the response and insert it back, it won't be a valid measure because there are these additional comments. So what is important? There are two ways to do that. We either can just provide instructions for ChatGPT to return valid JSON, and it will try as much as possible to do that. Or we can define JSON schema in our query to the assistant. So here, a JSON schema for response format. I wanted to return JSON, which contains DAX expression for the measure and contains additional field for measure description. So when it returns this JSON, I can easily parse it and update my measure with what was here in expression field. So only expression will go into my measure. So it will be valid DAX expression. And also from description field of the JSON file, I can take the description and I can update description property of my measure. So that's what helps to do it properly and make sure the response is valid DAX code and additional information.
Out of curiosity, how much how much time did it take you to create all of the scripts to basically generate the engine that can do all this for you? Because like there's a lot that you feed into it to, like, you know, essentially give it the model context to make sure that any question you ask it, it's going to be it has the full context of the situation plus all the books and everything else.
Oh, well, it was easy to do using ChatGPT and asking it to help me, but it was a lot of iterations.
Yeah,
like it returns some code, I insert into Tabular Editor. Tabular Editor says me, no, there are some problems with this code, there are errors, it doesn't work. I copy the error description back into ChatGPT, it returns me updated code, then I analyze the code by myself, see some problems. For example, it's a beta feature of OpenAI API, and without this request header OpenAI beta assistant version 2, it just won't work. So ChatGPT was not aware about this. So any response of ChatGPT with the code was not valid. I had to use Google to find that I need to use this OpenAI beta header to make it working. So it's hard to say, because you know how it's like in the middle of the night, you decide that you want to try something new, you spend half of the night trying to do something, then you left it. A few days later, it was again a few hours in the evening. So if summarize totally, it probably took me a couple of days to write it, and then some additional time to do some experiments and to test it. And it's still been beta version as well.
One thing I've found, at least in my experience, a couple of times, is the going through iterations with ChatGPT. There's a certain point where it does something wrong, and if you just simply ask it like, "Hey, well, that was wrong, fix it," it keeps kind of going down the path, that train of thought of like making more and more errors. And there's been a few times where I've gone back and replied to, like, let's say 5 or 6 iterations ago, like, forget everything that's happened after this. Let's start from here again, and I'm going to rephrase my question. There's been a few times where if I just asked it to keep continuing and trying to fix things that's already broken, I found that, like, wiping its memory and going back to that point in time before it made its first quote unquote mistake and just restarting my conversation thread from there has helped. I don't know if you've ever noticed that a couple of times where, like, once it gets wrong, it's really hard to tell it to be right again.
Yeah, I had this problem as well. So sometimes I just start a new thread from scratch. So it doesn't aware about all the previous discussion, because just telling it don't ignore all previous messages not necessarily will work. So it's easier just to start new thread from scratch, and then it gives you different response.
Yep, 100%.
So there are 2 scripts here. First script creates this assistant, uploads the files, uploads the data model. And once the script is created, it's possible to save it as a macro. So it will be available here in the list of macros. So now when I have open a new data model, I can create or update the assistant using the first script. And then there is the second script which takes your selected measure. I can select any measure. Then I can click Add Comments, and it sends this measure to the assistant, gets the response, and updates the measure. And nothing happened here. So it's not perfect yet. Again, it's also a beta version. Let me try again. Yeah, sometimes it returns invalid JSON for some reason. So yeah.
That's
but normally it adds the comment that I wanted it to add, and it updates measure description. You can see here in the description field, there is a description. This measure calculates the total operating expenses and so on. And also, because I'm testing it, I decided that it will be good to create a backup copy of the replaced measure. So it will be possible to disable this feature later, but for now, when it changes a measure, it creates a backup copy of the original measure, just to be sure.
The only other comment I might have on that is like the backup is really nice, of course, just in case you need a rollback. But instead of that, one thought is you could just in the original measure do the update, but just below it, like have the original as commented. So it's still in the first measure, but maybe it's just like you have like a dotted line, just a couple of like all commented, but just a separated section at the bottom with original measure if you needed to flip back to it or something. That way you don't have to have the two things stored in the model. As a thought.
Yeah, that makes sense, but I decided that for now, at least to testing it, it's easier for me to switch to different measure, just copy the text and insert it back when I need to restore it. Again, it's Tabular Editor, so you always can write backup here. It will show all backup measures. You can select all of them and delete them in one click. So it's not a big problem. But yeah, it's a good point that we also can insert it into the existing measure, like a comment.
So something like that, and like, well, I always like to dream and always envision like product features. So since this is, I'm assuming like kind of a community availability for some of these these C# scripts. C# really good at also giving you like dialogue options. So having maybe somewhere at the top to select a choice for that, where you could actually like a person, if they're leveraging this, if they're installing this as like a package to use from you, you're just giving them an option to either add new measure or add comment, but just give it a little menu toggle for that. Because I've done that similarly with pick lists when I run some of my C# scripts to do certain things in Tabular Editor. You get like a menu list to choose a couple of configurations before it executes.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I also was experimenting with making the script that it asks, shows me a list of existing assistants, so I can have not just one assistant. I can keep different assistants for different data models, and I can easily switch between them. But for now, I decided that it's easier to use just one assistant and update a JSON file that describes the data model when I switch to new data model. But it's also an option to create individual assistants for different data models and have a window with a list of your assistants, so you can choose different assistant or you can choose different feature of the script to do, again, different things like create new measure or update it. Yeah.
It's like the inclusion of C# in here has really just been a Pandora's box of so many things you can do. And thankfully, like, I'm appreciative of individuals like you making this stuff. Like, I love all this that this can do. I wouldn't personally not have been able to find enough time of my own to build nearly this much into it. So being able to kind of like have a turnkey for this as much as possible with C# lifting and shifting this, and being able to leverage this in your model without having Power BI Premium, I think for the developers who like to use Tabular Editor, I think really helps them out a lot with this. So thank you a lot for like building all this stuff for sure.
I probably also need to show that there is a link below the video to my GitHub, and here in Tabular Editor repository in AI Assistant folder, there are all my scripts for this assistant. There are 3 scripts here because one is to create an assistant and update it. One is to add comments to the measurer. And I am also experimenting with adding comments to M partitions. So instead of selecting a measurer, you can select.
So it comments the partitions for because each table, like depending on its size, can have more than one partition, that of data, so to speak. So what's the benefit of commenting? Is it the whole code for just that table, or is it the actual individual partitions themselves?
The idea is just to read M code and to add comments
gotcha. Okay.
to M code.
I was thinking the multiple partition scenario. Like if you have a billion rows, one table could have 15 or 20 partitions. With that. Okay, so it's really just the M code for each table, and then commenting what any of that's to do. Now, by comment, I'm assuming you mean the when you open the UI, and if you put a message in the description, you'll get the extra line before the after the applied step that then shows up as a little icon in the applied steps list. So would it be that type of comment where you can actually see it in the UI?
If AI has instruction to add comments before each row, then it will be visible in UI.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I do like that Power Query show. If you hover over it, you get a tooltip of the comment for every applied step.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm not really sure how this function is, how much it's useful here for M code, because here we can see only M code for the tables that loaded into the data model. We don't see M code for queries that not loaded into the data model. So it will be really good if it will be possible to connect AI to Power Query and to do it directly with Power Query.
I agree.
But not possible for now. For now, we have advanced editor, which is super advanced.
I'm still just asking for better. And maybe you agree, the IntelliSense for M, it doesn't work nearly as well in the web. Like the new version of Power Query that is in like data flows and all the other stuff, which we will eventually get for desktop. It just hasn't come yet. I feel like it's even worse than the IntelliSense. Like the one in Power BI desktop isn't amazing, but it's not that bad. But it gets even worse in the web browser. Like if I'm doing a custom column or if I'm editing the formula bar, I almost never get pop-ups to autocomplete my functions or anything else. I really wish that the M code would IntelliSense would get better and a bit more consistent.
Yeah. What I do often with M code, it's just copying it into Visual Studio and doing something here and then copying it back into Power Query. That's the best option I know for now to deal with M code.
Yeah, exactly. The and Visual Studio has a really nice M language extension and a few others. So that one's been useful to write. And Copilot helps a bit.
Yeah, but again, it's just copying back and forth. It will be really great if it's possible to connect to data model directly and make all changes without copying it manually. So, and I'm thinking about some additional features, what will be possible to do using this assistant, probably writing some documentation about the entire data model. So instead of just JSON, which is good for AI, ChatGPT understand it, but something human readable, description of the data model of all tables, all measures, everything that we have here. So I think it will be the next script to write. And when I have it, it will be published in my GitHub repository for everyone as well.
Exactly. And I mentioned to the people to check out your GitHub. The link to that's down in the description of the YouTube. So make sure to check those out.
So yeah, AI becomes really helpful. I yet to try to use it for data visualization. So some time ago, I tried it with Vega. It was good on really simple charts, but it won't make anything good with charts that can be used in real reports. So just some really basic stuff. So it's not yet ready to deal with data visualization, but probably with good instructions, with some additional files attached to the assistant, it will be possible to use it for data visualization to...
It kind of does that already with the SVGs. So like and I'm sure you've probably used it for this, but I've seen a lot of people posting on like LinkedIn and others about like just asking it to do something. And my video next week on a dumbbell range chart that's coming out next Tuesday talks about how easy it is to. I quite literally I got a screenshot of a chart that I wanted to make as an SVG. I gave it the picture and basically gave it just the performance analyzer script output of the visual that I have. Like, here's my visual. It has 2 levels of the hierarchy. I want this this range chart to show at both levels. Please design the SVG code to simply make this. And so I'll have a whole video to walk through next week on that. But it did that in about 6 or 7 prompts. I think I had to specify a couple of extra things where I mentioned like what my view box size was. I wanted to make sure the the data label was centered, not left aligned. But after 3 or 4 prompts, it gave me a perfect script, plugged it into a measure, and it just worked. And it took me maybe 15 minutes. So it's really good now at or IBCS stuff like this. So it's not perfect, but it saves a lot of time to write the SVG code for you and do the paths and everything.
It generates SVG, but especially with IBCS style charts, I decided to use a bit different approach. So instead of creating SVG code for every new chart I need in the report, writing it by yourself or using ChatGPT. Again, it's new SVG code for every chart. I decided that I want to use reusable code. So this is why to use, for example, in this report, I created a calculation group. So there is a calculation item for every chart type, SVG waterfall, and here is the code that generates SVG for this waterfall. And there is calculation item for absolute and variance timeline or for these 3 charts. So I have just one calculation item for every chart type. And then I need to edit just minor parts of the code, like explaining it that for SVG monthly measurer, it will be replaced. This base value will be replaced with total revenue. If selected metric is gross profit, if selected metric is operation income, it will use different measure. So basically, I need to edit
it's a switch
only
with nested switches. Okay, so it's
yeah.
2-level switch. Okay.
Yeah. So
how
basically,
expensive is this though? Sorry, go ahead.
What it allows me to do, so I have this calculation group. I can just load it using Tabular Editor into any new report and edit a few calculation item like this. So only these switches for main value of the chart, for average value, some different, just a few of them. And I will have my SVG visualizations in the report. So I don't need to edit the code that generates SVG every time for new chart. I can just reuse the same code in different visualizations in my report.
Yeah, when they changed the options to last year to open up the view box to any size, it really expanded the possibility of what you could build individually. I mean, it's still, I'd say, an intermediate to advanced feature, at least if you're doing it yourself. Thankfully, people like you, Kerry Kolasko, and a few others, there's plenty of copy-paste templates for these. The one downside is you still have to like write the script to kind of fit the visual. So if you have revenue in this, like the measure has to be written for that visual itself. So you have a lot of usually like local or report scoped measures. So it's we're getting closer to the point, hopefully, where we can have like toggles just to add visuals, maybe natively to matrix tables. But this is a nice stopgap between to give a lot more flexibility on this. And it's what you like to spend a lot of time on. Like I don't know if you want to show it at all, but like that page that has all of your showcases of like all of the crazy different visuals that you built in Deneb, like you've made a lot of really cool stuff. Yeah, if you don't just pull it up just to show people watching.
Yeah, this all
exactly.
Vega visualizations. Again, what is
Didn't
good with Vega?
Go ahead.
Yep.
I was just saying, you had one where there was you could move like a slider over the visual back and forth or something like that, right? Steve showed me one of these that did that.
Yep. Let me find it. 19 rows diagram. So basically,
I didn't know you could do this in Deneb. This is cool.
Yeah, it's a reproduction of the Nightingale's chart, and I decided that I want to show the original and my version, and it was really cool way to show them.
Now, just confirming, is there any? So the bottom at least is Deneb. Like, within the Vega Light language, were you actually able to add that but you basically gave it an image, and then you gave it the scroll bar to like expose image, not expose image, like that. All of that is was that 100% inside of Deneb? Is there any extra layers on top of this?
Here on my website, it's without the NAP. It's just Vega, not Vega Lite. It's Vega.
Okay, but it's still the same language. So like what Deneb uses, but just you did it on your own website.
Yeah, it's fully compatible with the NAP, so you can just copy it into Power BI and it will work in Power BI.
Yeah, it is. Your visuals have definitely helped it, I think, show me how robust the Vega language is. Like I knew it was super customizable, but like these little extra things that are, it's not even necessarily chart related. It's more of like a website UI like related feature. So it's a very impressive one of many that you've built. So again, for people watching, I encourage you to just check out some of this. It's for people who like visualizations, it's a fun playground just to click around and like explore some of these. This one was cool. I think the election map one was a pretty interesting one. I don't know if you have a personal favorite.
What I really like to create using Vega and the NAP is custom tooltips, because in Vega language, whatever you create on your chart, you have full control over the tooltip. You can create this tooltip as additional group of Vega marks. So it can be, I have no any advanced examples here, probably only in the client's report, but I think this map. So you can create a tooltip which will be round or triangle or custom shape. It can be semi-transparent. It can work like here as a magnifying glass.
That's cool.
Or you can create it as just a tooltip.
Curiously, so like that little circle is there either way. And again, I like to dream of like options. So on this one visual, could you add a button on the visual to let you choose which tooltip you want? So you're currently changing at the top between two visuals, build it into the single visual where you have like a selection. Do I want magnification or do I want information or whatever it might be?
Yes, you can make buttons to switch between different form of tooltips. Tooltips that show different data. You can have tooltips that is following the cursor, or you can just dock it somewhere on the right of the chart. You can change dynamically. If it's a table with some list of some items, you can dynamically change how many rows will be included.
That's cool.
What is not possible in Power BI tooltips, they are just fixed size and you can change it dynamically. And here you can just resize it dynamically to show different number of rows in the table or for different purpose.
Very, very cool. As we're getting closer to time, is there and wrapping up, is there anything else you'd want to show, or links or references that you might want to direct people to either check out some of your stuff or to start exploring either some of the visualizations or ChatGPT that we were talking about, just to get people to take away?
Again, I think there are links under the video to my GitHub and to my website, so people can find all the information there. If it's about data visualization, then I have a set of DNAP templates based on Financial Times visual vocabulary. So if someone wants easy start in using DNAP and Vega for different chart types, I have a bunch of templates where you can just load the template into the NAP and drop your fields into the NAP visual, and you have a simple chart which you can use as starting point for creating something more advanced and customized.
Perfect. Drop in some links in the chat.
also on my YouTube channel, there are some YouTube videos about how I use it SVG to create this IBCS styled visualizations. There are a few videos about the NAP and Vega. SVGs. I also tried some HTML and CSS in Power BI. In core visuals, like new card visual. So yeah, I really like some experimenting with some custom features.
Dropping all the links.
Sometimes sometimes it's just for myself because I love experiments, and often it goes into clients' project because some clients we don't need any custom visualization for like majority of the reports, but there are some industry and company specific reports that really benefit from customization.
I agree. And I mean, honestly, to your point that you just said, I have definitely multiple times benefited from having a video of something that I've done and like, wait, what was the pattern for that? I can go back to the video or the file that I built for that and then publish to YouTube. And it's my own documentation for me because I definitely can't remember every pattern or technique that I've done. So I use my own resources on a very regular basis, or quite regularly get inspired from client work. So a good portion of the videos that I do is often because the client comes to me and like, I need this very specific thing in a very specific way. And I wouldn't have ever thought to build that, but like, let me record a video on how I got to there, maybe using conditional formatting or native visuals, maybe Deneb or something like that. But I enjoy being forced into a box where I have to think creatively of how to find the solution for that, because it usually means that translates into something that somebody in the community would probably appreciate hearing about.
Yep.
Exactly. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today for this. This has been fantastic. I'm glad we got a sprinkle of visualizations in there at the end, which I know is one of your primary specialties with a lot of this stuff. But the solution you built in Tabular Editor and the connections with ChatGPT is one of the more robust ones that I've seen. So for anybody watching again later, check out the GitHub. Sounds like you will be continuing to update and add features to this, so it's going to evolve a little bit. But for those advanced modelers, I think there's a lot of benefit of the shortcuts, auto documentation, and auto optimization that ChatGPT can provide, even as that model gets better too, and hallucinates less and less.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, then with that, what I want to do is wish you a good rest of your Friday night. Thank you so much for coming on. And at some point in the future too, I'd love to get you back on where we can just talk shop and do like visualizations as well. Because you have a large library of things to discuss with that. So I always welcome an opportunity to showcase native and also just what Deneb can do as far as the custom visuals goes. So love to have you back on at some point.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for inviting me, and have a good weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have a great weekend. Thank you for taking your time out of your Friday night, and we'll see you again soon.
See you. Bye.
All right. Cheers. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships or our merchandise store for cool swag. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on your social media platform of choice to help our channel grow. So, until next time.